This might be the first card to be banned in Magic before it's even been released. Cranial Ram, a card recently revealed from Modern Horizons 3, has been making big waves in the Magic the Gathering community, specifically in the Pauper community, with some people going even as far as suggesting banning it before it has even been released. But first, an announcement. Mirror Enchanter has been threatening to be released, ushering in a new era of artifact and enchantment's dominance in Pauper. I talked to Daybreak Games and they said they would withhold this card only if we can get the 420 Dragon MTG channel to 1,000 subscribers. So please subscribe to the channel, lest we get overrun by artifacts and enchantments once again. The Pauper format allows players to use cards from all across Magic's history, that is, if they've been printed at common rarity. So why is this card so scary to the Pauper community? Let's break it down. So the card itself, Cranial Ram, costs a red and a black for an equipment that pumps the equipped creature's power by the amount of artifacts you control and its toughness by 1. It also has the Living Weapon ability, which allows it to create a germ and attach itself to it when it enters the battlefield. And you can equip it to something else for the price of 2 mana. You might be thinking that this doesn't seem too powerful. If you play it out on turn 2, it's basically just a 1/1 creature, right? Maybe 2/2 if you played an artifact on the first turn. That's where you'd be very wrong. Pauper is home to one of the most devious sets of lands ever printed, the artifact lands, and their newer buddies, the bridges. In Pauper, it's very possible to build a deck using only these artifact lands, which can enable the Ram to pump creatures for massive numbers in the mid and late game. Your lands are pumping that sucker up just by existing. In fact, a deck that uses all artifact lands already exists and is really good. Affinity as a deck has been around since the very early days of Pauper, with the artifact lands enabling the namesake mechanic on powerful cards like Mirror Enforcer and Thoughtcast. It has rarely been a bad choice, and at some points it has been extremely dominant. Cranial Ram is another in a long line of common rarity artifact payoffs which have proven to be extremely powerful. In fact, it even has an uncle who was sentenced to life in the ban list before the format officially began. That's right. The very first card on the Pauper ban list was the Ram's uncle, Cranial Plating. Plating was released with 5th Dawn in 2004, and dominated the formats where it was able to be combined with artifact lands. Back in the day, it was not uncommon to see a 20 power Frog Knight slide across the table and one-shot some unfortunate kid whose mom didn't want to shell out to get him a fully tier 1 deck. Or so I've been told. I was 7 at the time, and I was obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh! Plating was so powerful that when Pauper players came together to make an official rule set, it was agreed that plating should be banned from the start of the format. And as far as power creep goes, Cranial Plating has withstood the tests of time very well. Even Glitters, a one-shot version of this effect, was powerful enough to be banned 20 years later. So imagine the damage that a reusable and colorless version, with potential to be equipped at instant speed, could do. Granted, Cranial Ram does not have the ability to equip itself at instant speed and is not colorless. However, one could argue that it's more powerful than Cranial Plating just by virtue of the fact that it comes with a creature attached. This aspect of Cranial Ram does a lot to mitigate some of Plating's weaknesses. One of Plating's weaknesses is that it is entirely useless without a creature to equip onto. The Living Weapon effect on Ram mitigates this and allows it to always be a useful draw, even in grindy late game scenarios where all your creatures have died. The main point in Plating's favor is that it only costs 1 mana to equip, whereas Ram costs 2. This makes it much easier to play out the Plating, equip it to a pre-existing creature, and attack for big damage in the same turn early on in the game when mana is tight. So, what would I do? It depends. If you're trying to keep the format in a balanced state, I would definitely just ban this card before it sees play. In my mind, there's no world in which this card isn't absurdly overpowering compared to the rest of the format. However, I do enjoy the occasional obscenely overpowered deck, so personally, I wouldn't mind being able to play with Cranial Ram for a week or 2 before it gets the axe. Another reason that Cranial Ram has been so controversial is that only a couple weeks ago, All That Glitters was added to the ban list of Pauper. All That Glitters is an aura that gives enchanted creature +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. In a lot of ways, Ram is just a functionally stronger Glitters. It comes with a creature built in, it's reusable because you can equip it to other targets if the target it's equipped to dies, and it's in red-black, which makes it much easier to use in existing artifact strategies. So, what do you think? Should the Ram be banned before it's even released? Or should Pauper players be able to play with this potentially broken card for at least a short time before it's banned? Let me know what you think down in the comments below.